So your motto is always be amazing.
Yes, it is.
And your book, Be Amazing or Go Home, discusses how we can use this motto to become exceptional in business and in life.
Yes.
In your opinion, what does an amazing employee look like?
Sure.
And what does an amazing leader look like?
Oh, wow. So that's a lot of questions and a lot of thoughts in one thing. Actually, rather than a motto, I like to refer to this as a mantra. And a mantra is our vision for what the company looks like and what we want our customers to experience, which is how we came up with this idea, always be amazing. I started looking at all of the books that I'd written, articles that I'm always talking about, be amazing, deliver amazing service. But it's important to understand my definition of amazement. And then I'm going to get into your specific questions. And that is, amazement isn't over the top. Amazement is when people refer to a company as amazing, this is what they say. You know what? They're always friendly. They're always so knowledgeable. When I call them, they're always so helpful. And that word always followed by something positive means there is a consistent and predictable above average experience. And it doesn't have to be a whole lot above average. It just has to be consistently above average, because then they'll use that word always. By the way, that if you're just average, they'll say things like, yeah, they're fine. They're okay. Yeah, they're always okay. Big deal. No, but they're always so helpful. They always return my calls quickly. So that's what amazement is. So when we talk about being amazing, we don't have people come in here that we're hiring and say, I need your attitude to be over the top every day. Let's go crazy. No.
Right.
So let's start with the first question. What does an amazing employee look like? Well, I have a number of different concepts that I talk about in my books. In Be Amazing or Go Home, which is a book that I wrote, and I'll tell you the story in a few minutes, based on an employee's recommendation. One of my team members recommended, write that down. That would be a great book. And there's a whole story that goes around it. And maybe this will help define what Be Amazing in an employee standpoint is. So this particular team member, she started showing up late to work every day. And it became a habit. I noticed it was like 4 days in a row, and I brought her into the office on the 5th day, and I go, what's going on here? You're late every day. And by the way, it's just a little late, but that's symptomatic of a lot of other potential problems. If somebody can't get to work on time, what else can't they do on time or within the boundaries of what's normal? And to me, showing up to work on time is pretty normal. But the difference is with her, she represents me as my personal assistant. So if she's showing up late and I'm okay with that, that means everybody else gets to show up late too. And I thought this is not a good example to be setting. So we came in and I said, what is our mantra here at Shepherd Presentations? And she said, to always be amazing. And I said, great. And I think you're a pretty amazing person, except I've got a couple of questions. There's the big one. You've been coming in late every day, yeah? And she goes, yeah. I said, do you think that's amazing behavior? And she said, no. And I said, it's not amazing. No, because amazing people show up on time, ready to amaze. So I'm going to give you a choice. You need to start showing up on time. And, basically you need to be amazing or go home. And she goes, that's a great title for a book. You should write that down. So that's how Be Amazing or Go Home. But really, it's sometimes such a small thing. It's maybe a nuance, when, it's like, so the doors at a store open at 10 o'clock in the morning. And right about, 9:59 and 50 seconds, there's an employee who's starting to open the doors and slide up. They have the metal, I don't know, whatever they call it, curtain at some of these stores in a mall. And about that time, the first customer walks in, waiting for those doors to open. And so many times I've heard an employee say, thanks for coming in. I'm just getting the store open. I'll be ready in just a couple of minutes. They should have been ready at 10 o'clock. That's what time the store opens. So I'm just giving you an example of what amazing behavior is, but there's lots of different ways that manifests itself. Amazing people are proactive. They look at things and they're one step ahead of their job, of the people they work with, and support of their customers. They love getting feedback, because amazing people want to get better at what they do. And the only way to get it is to hear from a leader, a boss, a colleague, or even a customer who says, hey, thank you so much, and gives them an accolade. They know what getting better looks like. Amazing people are consistent. They're predictable, as I mentioned earlier. They're always on time. They're always knowledgeable. They always return calls quickly. So those are some of the ways that team members or employees can be amazing. So what does an amazing leader look like? Oh boy, sometimes I wonder whether I question often if I'm an amazing leader or not. But hey, I'm very conscious of it and I'm aware. I think amazing leaders have a structure that they work within, and they coach and mentor others to that. They empower people to do a great job, and let them go out and try new things. They keep the doors of communication, there's no wall between them and employees. It's a two-way open door policy. Come in, talk to me, I'll go to them, talk to them, or a leader should go out and talk to them. So there's lots of qualities of leaders that make them amazing. I think first and foremost, and there's a gentleman named Clark. I met him. He's 18 years old. He worked at a pizza restaurant, and somebody once asked him if he was the owner, and it was a guest at the restaurant. And he asked, why would you ask that? And the guest said, you're just trying so hard to make us happy. And we just thought somebody that tries that hard has got to be the owner. And he felt great, but there's two reasons that was happening. Number one, he liked the owner. And number two, the owner gave him permission to do a great job. And of course, whenever he did something different, he would go back to the owner, to the boss, and say, hey, I tried this today. Did I do it right? And the owner would say, yeah, you were great. Keep doing that. Or let me show you a different way to do it. And maybe that's better for the next time. But the bottom line is, when Clark heard that compliment, and he viewed that as a compliment, even though it was a question, he decided he wanted to be so good that every table would think that he was the owner of the restaurant. And that's what we're looking for, a boss that will be somebody that we can admire, and there's great qualities of that boss, and then that would empower that team member, employee, to go out and do a great job.
Right.
Long answer for a short question.
That makes sense, though. That was a good answer.
Thank you.
So in terms of customer experience, part of being amazing requires a brand to create trust between itself and its customers. How can a brand begin to create trust between itself and its customers? And why is creating that trust so important?
Sure. Well, I think we kind of mentioned this as I talked about that word always. Trust comes from the predictable experience that a customer has. They know they're going to happen. In another book that I wrote about 10 or 11 years ago called Cult of the Customer, by the way, it's being re-released next year with all new stats, facts, and updated stories. We look at the 5 phases that customers go through, and the first phase is uncertainty, or cult. Mm-hmm. It's a culture. And when you come into a company the first time, maybe you've heard great things about them, but you're still not sure till you experience it yourself. So I'm going to come in and I'm uncertain, and then they're going to get me into alignment. This is what we're going to promise you. Then I'm going to experience that. If I'm a customer, I'm going to experience what they're promising. So I'm going from uncertainty to alignment to experience. And when I can predict that experience will be the same every time, and I like that experience, and it's predictable and consistent, that moves me into this cult of ownership. Okay, because I now own the experience. I know it's going to happen. And finally, the final phase is the cult of amazement, which is I know it's going to happen. I love it when it happens. And by the way, instantly a company can be put back into uncertainty when there's a problem. But the best companies have mastered the art of recovery, and they move somebody from uncertainty right back into amazement. And that's when that customer says, boy, I know I can always count on them, even when there's a problem. So you asked the question, what builds the trust? It's the predictability and the consistency of the experience. And I think you start there, and from that trust and that confidence that's created, you actually have a shot at getting a customer to come back and want to do business with you again and again and again.
Right. That makes sense. So besides building trust, what else can a business do to build a stronger relationship between itself and its customers?
Wow, there's so much. You wanted to deliver a great customer service and a great customer experience. Services, people think of service as what happens when something goes wrong. That's not it at all. That's part of it. There might be a department that handles problems, complaints, questions. But service runs throughout the entire organization. People taking care of people, making sure they get taken care of, and how nice they are about it, and how much confidence and trust they create as a result of that. Experience is a little bit bigger and broader topic, and our goal is to create, an experience that really, again, it's consistent, and it makes people say, yeah, I love doing business with them. So if you want to take the whole concept of experience to the next level, and by the way, I want to make sure I get this question correctly. What the last part of your question was?
Why is creating that trust so important?
Right. So creating that trust builds that loyalty, and the way to take that standard experience to the next level, beyond just being predictable and consistent, is to be convenient. It's to create an experience that has little or no hassle to it at all, because you want people to feel like they're just easy to do business with. And by the way, why is it important? Do you want your customer to come back? These are the drivers that will make that happen.
Right. Exactly. So in your book, the Be Amazing or Go Home, you highlight 7 customer service habits that create confidence with everyone. Which of these habits do you feel are the most important for a customer service team?
Oh my gosh. And I'm going to pull my book out just because there's.
I have it too, actually.
Okay, good. Isn't this a great book? So, I mentioned showing up on time. What we're trying to create is, and to your point, we're trying to create trust and confidence with the customer. And these are the habits that do it. And while I say there's 7, it's really 7 categories of habits. And there's within those categories, there's more habits. We actually created 5 techniques or habits that you can drive each of these main categories. I think just showing up on time. When I was a little kid, and I already talked about, person that worked here. And by the way, she turned it around. She figured it out. She started showing up on time. But let me give you a quick little example. I go, well, what are you doing to get here earlier? So it turns out she moved from being like 2 miles away to 25 miles away, was trying to figure out how to get to work on time. And she goes, I keep leaving earlier and earlier every day. I said, well, that's a great strategy, but I got a better strategy. This is what amazing people do. They leave really, really early. And when they realize they got there too early, then the next day they leave a little bit later until they finally find it. It's the opposite way of thinking in a sense, but it's so obvious when you think about it that way. So I think, amazing people showing up ready to amaze. That's a huge habit. When I was a kid, I did magic shows for birthday parties. My parents would drop me off. And at one point, I got so busy, I'm doing 3 and 4 magic shows. We would hire a high school kid to drive me around. And I had it set up so that I had my box of tricks. And it opened up. When it opened up, it's ready to do the show. And as I finished each trick, I put it right back in its spot. And it was instantly reset for the next birthday party. Follow me? So then what happens is I think, well, I don't need to show up until like 2 minutes before it's time to start, because as long as I'm there a couple minutes early, the parents can point me to an area and say, you're going to perform right there in that corner. I go over, I set my box down, I open it up, and I'm ready to go. And my dad said, well, that's a great strategy. I mean, you're there on time, but are you really there on time? I go, what do you mean? He says, at what point do you think the parents are looking at their watch wondering, I wonder if Mr. Magician is going to show up on time? I go, I don't know, like maybe 15 minutes ahead of time. He goes, exactly. 15 minutes ahead of time is when they're going to start worrying that you're going to be here on time. So when do you think you should show up? And I said, like maybe a few minutes before that. Exactly. Like 20 minutes ahead of time. So you need to be there 20 minutes before the magic show starts, or really in the parents' mind, you're late, because they're going to start worrying about it. As soon as you start worrying about it, it's a whole nother experience. So my dad taught me it's not just about showing up on time. It's showing up on time, ready to go. One of the habits I talk about in the book is Vince Lombardi time, or Lombardi time as it's traditionally called. So Vince Lombardi was this great football coach in the NFL. Green Bay Packers, famous. And that's why the Lombardi trophy is, the big, huge Super Bowl trophy, right? And one of the things he did was he told all of his players, tomorrow morning, practice starts at 9 in the morning. I expect you to be here 15 minutes early. And by the way, if you show up on time, which is 9 o'clock in the morning, you're 15 minutes late. So he always wanted to put this it's a great habit to get into, of having his players show up ready to play. And by doing that, they had to get there early. Ironically, and how big and powerful was this concept, that if you go to Lambeau Field in Green Bay, Wisconsin, there's a huge, huge clock on the outside of the stadium. And that clock is set 15 minutes early. And when people go by who don't know, they go, that clock's wrong. No, it's not wrong. It's on Lombardi time.
Oh, that's cool. That's very cool. I'm a big football fan, so that example speaks to me.
There is one other habit toward the end of the book, and it's just one of the sub habits, and it's called, the title of the chapter is "Sweep Like Beethoven Plays Piano." I love this one because it's about a habit of excellence, and it really stems from a Martin Luther King quote, and I just think it's wonderful. Let's see if I can get to the quote. Well, doesn't matter, but the quote said that even if you are a street sweeper, okay, that doesn't seem like a very important job, but it is important. And you should sweep the streets as if Beethoven was composing a symphony or Michelangelo was painting. No, that's how good you need to be. And I think no matter what you do, it's powerful to be extraordinary. I had a cab driver that picked me up in Dallas, Texas a number of years ago. And I tell this story all of the time. And this is just this regular cab driver taking me to the airport, but the cab was spotlessly clean. And there was a little bucket in the middle that had ice and sodas. I didn't expect that. And then there were 2 newspapers. He said I could take them. By the way, no extra charge for any of this. Told me I could have candy. He had a dish of candy. And I thought this was a great cab ride. And he got a huge tip, but that wasn't the end of the story. During the ride, and I could give you lots of details that I don't need to get into, he asked me for my business card because he said he collects the cards of the people that he drives. And I gave him my card. He gave me his. And I thought that was a great way of putting his card into my hand so I would have it the next time I came back to Dallas. But the real reason he wanted my card wasn't just to have a card that he collects of people that he drives. Is that 4 days later, I got a thank you note from my cab driver. How many people ever receive a thank you note from a taxi cab or an Uber or a Lyft driver? Doesn't happen.
It doesn't happen.
And this handwritten thank you note is in a frame just on the other side of that door out in the main office area where the rest of the team sits. And it's just to remind us of how important it is to show appreciation. But I thought this driver wasn't ordinary. He was extraordinary. And what did he do different? We've all been in an Uber or a taxi cab where there's a bottle of water or maybe a little dish of candy. That's just a little bit something extra. It's an amenity, if you will. But this guy was very conscious about making sure that I was comfortable or that I could take those amenities and not have to pay for them. And then the thank you note was over the top. He went from ordinary to extraordinary with little things. Pretty cool.
Right. That is cool. That's awesome. So one of the most intriguing customer service habits listed in your book is turning misery into magic.
Oh, yeah.
How can someone turn a miserable customer experience into a magical one?
Well, part of it is it's the right attitude, is that when bad things happen, you've got to say, okay, I can fix this. And even the best companies, you can go to the Ritz-Carlton or the Four Seasons Hotel, recognized world-class brands. There's going to be a problem. It's the way people fix these problems. So I have this 5-step process that I take my clients through. And some of this is in the book, of course. But number one, if a customer or even a fellow employee, a colleague comes to you with a problem, this is what fixes it. Number one, you acknowledge that there's a problem. And number
Right.
two, and I'll go through them real quick and give you a more generic example. Number two, you apologize for it. You can flip 1 and 2. It doesn't matter. Those 2 things have to happen first. Number 3, you discuss what you're going to do to fix it, or fix it on the spot if you can. Number 4, you own the problem when it comes your way. So the right attitude, and that's an attitude of ownership. May not have been your fault, but it came your way. You get to take care of it. Number 5, you act with urgency. And many times it's that quick follow up, making sure I take care of you right away is what restores confidence, often to a place that's even higher than if the problem had never happened before. So let me give you a great example. I'm at a restaurant with a group of friends. We ordered dinner, and I will tell you, I knew the server was not good. They just had a bad attitude. I could tell, but I'm dealing with it. But then the salads show up and everybody's salad looks beautiful except for the friend sitting next to me. He's got like a tiny little portion of salad on a big plate. Like somebody, it must have fallen off or something. I don't know. So my friend says, "Excuse me, sir, but look at everybody's salad. It looks so good. What happened to my salad?" And this is what the server says. He says, "I don't make them. I just serve them." Whoa, that's the exact opposite. Now, he did in fact acknowledge the problem. You would call that acknowledgement, okay? But he did not apologize. He did not own it. He didn't have a good attitude about it. As a matter of fact, he took so little responsibility. He said, "Hey, I don't make them." He's blaming people in the back for making them, in the kitchen. "I just serve them." And as far as discussing the resolution, there was no discussion of any resolution. It was just there. He walked away and there was no sense of urgency. Now, somebody in a better position who knows what to do might have said something like this: "Oh my gosh, I can't believe I didn't notice that. I am so sorry." There we've got acknowledgement and apology. Tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to run back. I'm going to get you another salad right away. Okay. And that statement, there's the fix. There's the ownership of it, of the attitude, and there's the urgency. I'm going to do it right away. In one sentence, this server nailed all three. That's what could have happened.
Right.
And so, by the way, this 5-step process not only works for little things like that, really will work for the largest problems that a company could have, a brand crisis. And I've taken my clients who call me and say, "We have a big problem. Social media hit us. There's some really bad activity. What do you think we should do?" Number one, you got to acknowledge it. You got to apologize for it. You got to discuss what you're going to do about it. You got to take ownership and responsibility for it. And I suggest you don't wait another minute. Act now. So there you go. The urgency.
That makes sense. So if there's one key takeaway that a reader has from reading your book, what would you want that key takeaway to be?
So again, I think that being amazing, it doesn't happen once in a while. It needs to happen all the time. It needs to be a habit, which is why I call them habits. This is nothing more than relationship building and confidence creation, and just steps to do it. So I would say, just keep in mind as you read, if you get the book, and I hope you do, and you read through the book, you'll find that, gosh, you don't need to do all 35 of the ideas and strategies. Pick one or two, and you're already making little bits of improvement along the way. And so that's what I would say. It's a habit. A habit needs to be practiced all the time. You need to be conscious of it. You just need to do it. Just like the Nike commercials say, just do it.
Exactly. Makes sense. So now we do have a little time left. So if anyone out there listening wants to ask a question or two, you're welcome to. Natalia, do we have anything? No? Okay. But I have a couple more if no one else does.
Sure.
This one is kind of easy, but did you ever see your cab driver again?
Oh, absolutely.
Something I always wondered.
Not only did I see the cab driver, I got to know this guy, and he finally retired. And there's a whole story that goes with it. If you go to my YouTube channel, go to shep.tv, okay? And that'll take you straight to my YouTube channel. And on the top line, it says, here's Shep's story about the cab driver. And you can hear the story. This guy was amazing. He didn't look the part. He looked like he was kind of, he was kind of dressed in a, t-shirt, and his hair was messed up, but man, could he take care of people. So here's what's cool. You don't hear this in the story, but the average cab driver, when Frank started driving a cab, was making about $20,000 a year. And he would work, Frank would work 6 days a week, and he'd work 12-hour shifts. That's half day, 12 hours. I only work a half a day, 12 hours. That's a long half day. But they would drive, and they'd make about $20,000. They'd sit at the airport for 2 or 3 hours and hopefully get somebody that they would get like the flat $22 rate that would go downtown. That was a decent fare back then. But Frank said, if I'm really good and I give my card out and people start calling me because of my service, maybe I won't have to wait 3 hours at the airport. Maybe I'll just get to the airport 10 or 15 minutes early and wait for my customer. And then I'll just drive a lot more. Well, he did. He went from making $20,000 to more than $100,000 a year.
Wow.
The taxi.
That's amazing.
Yeah. He recognized the difference between ordinary and maybe a little bit better than ordinary. Hence extraordinary, extraordinary.
Right.
He recognized the difference between just creating a satisfied customer, which is one that's, here's a nice tip, see you later. That means they were happy with the ride. to a loyal customer, one that says, here's a nice tip and I will see you later. I'll call you when I come back. And that's what he got with me and a number of other customers. He got so busy, he had to actually have other cab drivers help him out and fill in for the
Oh,
times he was
wow.
so busy. So yeah,
That's amazing.
yeah, it's a great story.
That's really amazing. Well, it's just about time for us to get ready for the next session, but I just wanted to thank you so much for taking the time out to come and sit and talk with us today
Oh, my pleasure.
and giving us some insights into your book and on all the amazing knowledge you have about customer experience. If anybody didn't get it, I suggest getting Shep's book. It's an
Yeah.
awesome book. And he also has a bunch of other amazing books too. And this one is actually coming out into paperback October 1st, right?
Right. So, I mean, you can pre-order. It's in hardbound version for the last 2 years. And then my publisher, Sound Wisdom, who I just started working with on the last book, they were wonderful. They said, Shep, let's put out in paperback. And I go, okay. And I don't know why we didn't do that to begin with, but hey, now it's available in paperback. Save a few dollars. And you know what? It's an investment that I think will pay for itself many, many, many times over, hundreds, thousands of times over, as you build confidence, which actually builds loyalty with your customers, but creates confidence with your colleagues, people you work with. It'll enhance your career.
Awesome. Well, thank you again so much.
Thank
I
you.
really
My pleasure.
appreciate you taking the time.
All right. See you soon, I hope.
All right. Have a good day.